The Edible Valley Podcast, episode 207.
On this episode, we're talking rising food prices. Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
In each episode, we ask experts to weigh in on the food topics that matter to you, from growers to producers to chefs.
And I challenge John, Darren and you to learn more about your food and the stories behind it. From our hub on Vancouver Island in the beautiful Comox Valley, join us as we explore our edible valley. Good day to you. This is the Edible Valley Podcast, episode 207. My name is William. I'm the producer. To my left, we've got Mr. Jonathan Fraser. They call him that because that is his name. Hello.
That's what my mom named me, actually.
Wow.
Actually, it was my grandfather because he didn't like what my parents were going to name me. We're not going to talk about that today.
Interesting. Darren Howlett is not the name I was given. Neither Darren nor Howlett was the name I was born with.
Really?
What?
Yeah, that's another story. Or do you want me to tell you?
I mean, you can't. I mean, how much do I care? A little bit. Go on.
So my dad's my stepdad. He adopted me. He gave me my last name, Howlett. And my birth dad named me DJ after my mom, whose name was Deborah June. And then he left, and my mom was like, well, screw that. I'm going to change his name. And so she changed my name to Darren. But I was born DJ Murphy, and now I'm Darren Howlett.
I kind of feel DJ Murphy. This is the Edible Valley Podcast with DJ Murphy. I'd listen to that.
All right.
Oh, totally.
I'm your co-host, DJ Murphy.
We got the DJ in the house.
Anyways, that was a weird tangent.
That was a really weird tangent. Today we're talking about the family tree. So we're going to dive straight in to food prices. If you're listening to this very recently, you're going to know basically everything in the world's gone wrong in the last 5 years. If it's 20 years ago, this probably looks like a really great time. But we've had the virus, and we've had Brexit, and we've had events in America, shall we say, and of course we've just had Russia invading the Ukraine. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and all the world seems to be kind of doing something. But one thing is absolutely certain, and that is food prices, and all prices actually for just about everything, absolutely rocketing. John.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry right now.
Yeah, all the things that you just listed are parts, that's what's contributing to it. But I mean, that's really what we're going to get into, isn't it?
Well, I think I want you to go because this was your episode.
This started with me texting you guys saying at the grocery store saying, "What the hell?" So I have a small catering business, and just to throw some numbers out there, I did a quick look, as I do every week, what I need to pick up from the grocery store, and I'm usually laser focused on pricing. I'm always know exactly what it's going to be, and I knew going out that this was going to be about $450. Whatever, like I don't need to know that. I just like to know that my costs are in line and I keep my costs where they need to be. And ringing it through, it came to $575.
Whoa.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be $525, and I think that's what I texted you guys. And then when I had forgotten three things, I went back to get them, and everything came to $575 from a $450 shop. So like that's over 20%. And I mean, I realized that some of that was me using pricing from earlier in the year, in that right now people are saying there's 5, 6, 7% increases. But 6 months ago, there was 5% increases too, and before that, and
there's more increases and more increases, and
yeah. Anyways, it was significant enough that I was shocked and bitter and grumpy about it, and I had to voice my anger to our Edible Valley chat.
Well, now you have 20 minutes to complain. So
no, this isn't going to be me. No, this isn't going to be me griping. So exactly, that's just it. We were talking about, and I pointed out specific examples, like I was like, well, I'm holding this bag of avocados that not even 9 months ago cost $8. That's now $11, right? That's a 20-something% increase. Yeah, 25, whatever. And there was a couple other things where I was just shocked. So John's like, well, there's lots of contributing factors, so let's go over that.
Like there's so many things that, and I mean, Will brought up most of them at the beginning. Is
Yeah.
that we are just coming on the back end of a pandemic,
Right.
which has really thrown a wrench into everything. And
But how does that actually become? I mean, you can say, "Oh, we were all sick." How does that actually equate into higher prices?
Well, I think that drives to, I don't know.
Interesting question.
I think for me, I think there's a couple of things. I think that there's fewer people to draw from to work.
There's a labor shortage right now.
Yeah.
That's
so then
a huge
so then you have
one.
fewer people actually making the foods or producing the foods or picking the foods or packing the foods, whatever it is.
Or supplying the food. The food
Right.
chain. The food chain has got some hiccups in it right now.
Yeah. It's shown us that there's this process from the food being planted in the first place to picked.
Yeah.
You know, there's two things. So there's the what's happening in Ukraine as well. There
Right.
are like 30% of the world's wheat or something comes
Yeah,
from Ukraine.
sunflower oil out of there.
Yeah, and so
things you don't think about.
It's this. We're realizing that it's this massive ecosystem.
Yeah.
That, and you just take one thing, like to take truck drivers, for
Right.
example. Now,
Right.
there's two issues at the moment with
Right.
that. We're strictly speaking about, getting A to B, and if a truck driver has the virus, they can't do that anymore. So how is the
Right.
supermarket shelf going to have stuff put into it?
That's right.
That's just one of them.
Well, even going across the border was another thing.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having to isolate and stuff like that, doing that.
But and I think that's just it. I think that people have come complacent in just thinking, well, I'll just go to my grocery store and pick up the groceries, not really putting, connecting dots that those groceries come from places. And right now, with everybody going through what everybody's going through, they can't go from places to here.
Have you guys even thought about the food chain of how it actually works? Because we're talking about the farmer who's creating the product, who sends it off to the processor.
Sure.
And the processor, so sometimes that's on the farm or off the farm where the food gets processed. Then it goes to a distributor.
Right.
From the distributor, it goes to the retailer. Then it goes to your consumer, which would be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the food chain, too, is also disposal.
Right.
Of the waste from the food. So you think about that whole chain, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps there.
Yeah.
And we're having issues in each one of those steps right now. So that's driving the price up. And it's making issue if you think about how many container ships are being stuck outside. Remember we were hearing about San Francisco, how there were ships stuck out there, and you realize how much product comes in through that, and especially like for ourselves with Vancouver, that's a major shipping lane. And that's been stalled out, and how many ships are sitting out there waiting to get unloaded because there's not the staff to unload them.
Right.
Well, I mean, let's chuck a few more out there. So obviously we had the pandemic, so the border was closed.
Yeah.
We had flooding. Anyone remember that? We've had so much happen.
We haven't even got into climate change, have we?
No. Unbelievable flooding back in the autumn meant that there was Vancouver Island, and there was actually two Vancouver Islands because the city of Vancouver was essentially an island.
Right.
So plus there was Vancouver Island. And of course, Vancouver Island is behind Vancouver, essentially, from the perspective of most of Canada. So our shelves here on the island started to empty out again because things couldn't get, and they actually had to come in through the States.
That's right.
What about, let's go... Yeah, let's go back 6 months again. Does anyone remember it being 112 degrees? Because that's what it was last summer for a long time.
Yeah.
And so there were towns. I think Linton in BC just blew up.
Right. And so, but I mean, as for how that
it's terrible,
like how that affects the food chain. I mean, right away with flooding a crop and then burning it. Like obviously, your yield for your crop is you're going to have so much more waste. You're going to have so much more that's not being able to be pulled from that, right? And then that's why you get that higher cost because a farmer that was expecting to make this much off that crop, off that field, still needs to make it to stay in business for the next year, even though there's far less produce coming off of it. Right?
Yeah, for them to live. And not to take it too much off a tangent, but I don't think this gets talked about enough, and I think we should with food security and things like that, that when there's less of something and the price goes up, there are going to be people that can no longer afford it. So we're talking avocados. This is not a shot at you, it's in the slightest, but there are people that can no longer get avocados. Now, you might say, well, first world problems, but what to replace avocados for bread and
it's staples,
milk,
exactly.
and at some point there are some people going, we can't get that anymore. We can't afford it.
Look what's happening right now over in Russia and Ukraine with India. Like they get a major supply, and China both get a major supply of their wheat from both of those areas. That's getting shut down, right? So you think about that. Actually, look at Ukraine, how big of an area it is, and they're worried about them not being able to, the farmers to be able to work their fields because of this war that's going on. So that could be a serious issue for Europe with the down, losing that amount of area. If you think of how big Ukraine is, and it's a farming area, and they're going to lose all of that this year. Or if they don't get it in the ground now, it's not going to come up. Like spring's happening now. So if they don't get this sorted out in the next months or so, that's going to drive prices up, because that demand in Europe is going to they have some money, and they're going to start pulling from our Western supply.
Again, I want to just keep driving this back to how does this affect us? So then let's say, throughout Europe, there's higher demand for product because they're going through a shortage. So they all of a sudden are willing to pay a little bit more, which is going to pull product from us, which means that our scarcity grows. And they have, with scarcity, people pay more because there's less of it to go around. Yeah. So there you go. There's the food price going up again.
And we're living in inflation right now too.
So
hilarious.
So many funny things today on this episode, right?
I'm not making light of it. I'm like, it's literally a list that I don't even think we have we can't even get into in an episode of everything that's contributing to this. This is crazy.
Let's talk about fuel prices.
How do we not mention that? Fuel price. I mean, Russia is being heavily sanctioned, and a lot, not so in North America anymore, but Europe, places like Germany, I think close to 50% of their fuel and gas comes from Russia.
Wow.
Yeah. They can't just cut it off overnight, although they might be fairly close to made to quite
well, that's even our own situation where we have plenty of petroleum in this area, but we have no way of processing it or supplying it to either end of the country, right? So
is that right?
There's a little bit of issue. I know there's a lot of people like, this was like, why put a pipeline in? But now maybe we need to double down and have this pipeline, just be able to supply ourselves with fuel.
Yeah, I mean
that's a loaded issue, and I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really have a stance on
that.
But holy smokes, it's true. Like, I remember not even 2 years ago, I was in Mission. I think it was on my way into the interior, maybe 3 years ago. I was on my way to the interior, and gas had hit $1.65, and I was like, "This is gross." I'm taking a picture of this, and I'm showing people how disgusting $1.65 is. And this wasn't even 3 years ago, and now gas hit $2 here. I was like, I never thought I'd see that day. And at that time that it was $1.65, it was like $1.20 something here. But it was just in Mission that it was, I think it was $1.29 here. But like I was absolutely blown away.
$1.25. I remember those good times.
Anyways.
Well, I would like to talk a little bit about, because I bypass the retail a lot of times.
Yeah, true.
With ordering through the restaurant, I do straight from distributors, right?
Right.
And that's been an interesting thing over the last 2 years, is that you've seen products that were very common occurrence and very easy product, and that you would be able to sort of check between different companies to see the prices, and they were always within a couple dollar rate. So it was kind of like I'll say coconut milk was one.
Sure.
I'm like, coconut milk, I'll just buy that from these guys today. Like, it's like $2 more, whatever. But I've got a full order for a case. But now all of a sudden there's $20 differences, and it's going through everything. Like,
wow.
Like from fennel, I was looking at fennel, and one group was $80 for 24 heads of fennel, and another one was $130 for fennel, God. And then another one was $110. So it was like,
how is that?
Well, it's where they're getting their supply from and what they're purchasing it from, and so
I would assume that at the point like this, everybody's in lockdown. In that, those people that they're getting the supplies from, they're probably not able to window shop right now. Your distributor isn't able to go to. Well, normally we deal with this people. But let's see what these people are doing. They've already got that deal locked in.
Yeah. There's a lot of the negotiation isn't happening before like it used to, where they're like, no, we can get a better deal for this. We'll, you know, like, oh, they're going to sell it to us for this much. Well, then we'll get it from these guys. But now that doesn't exist anymore. Wow. So you're seeing these prices creep up on and like there's some of the people that I would expect to have very low prices from are even more expensive than the people that I expect to have high prices from. So it's really put a little bit more effort into being a restaurateur. And if you're a restaurateur who is dealing with one distributor right now, you need to be really on your mark, because you can get affected pretty quickly, and that goes right against your bottom line.
So like with my catering, I realized that, I mean, what do I do to these schools and kids that, you know, that I'm supplying a lot of food? Do I just like slap an extra $1 or $2 onto I can't do that. I can't. We're coming to the end of the school year. I'm just going to ride it out. But my costs went up so high that my profit margin is becoming nil. You know what I mean? There's no profit margin.
Well, you went from doing 450 to
575 to produce an order of food.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm not, it's not, oh, woe is me, you know, oh, poor Darren. I'm just saying that the reality is that unless something radical happens over the summer, I'm going to have to jack my prices up just so that there's still a profit in it for me. Still
inflation.
Be able to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, minimum wage is raising next month, so that should solve it.
There we go. I'll solve everything.
No.
So I mean, I'm curious. We normally sometimes we brief each other for a minute about what we'd like to talk about, but we didn't get into this. But I have a question. I hope I'm not catching you guys off guard. So knowing all this, seeing how everything's going, what do you have planned to deal with that? How are you going to navigate around it?
Well, I know I do need to lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Is that going to eat less?
I'm just going to eat less, I figure. Yeah. No, just slim down a little bit. I overeat, you know. One or two less bags of potato chips a week, and I think I should
not potato chips. Well, I mean, I've stopped wasting food. I actually have started making sure that there's only a few things in the fridge.
Right.
And using them and taking it from that angle instead of just what do I fancy getting from the store on my way home from work.
Right.
And it is phenomenal. I can't believe the difference it's made by looking and thinking, what have I got? What can I make?
Yeah.
Instead of driving home thinking, what do I fancy tonight?
Right.
It's a really good difference. I've spent considerably, probably 50% less on food because I'm not chucking anything away.
Yeah.
So I would say that's almost a positive. I was going to ask, can we think of any positives to any of this?
Well, honestly, I've done a bit of what you're doing, not a lot, but I've taken to making a couple of curries now a week because curry is such a broad category that I can literally just find something in my fridge or freezer. I'm like, I got to use that up, knowing my kids are game. They're going to eat that curry. So like, whereas before some of that may have become waste or some of it may be still in my freezer, that just became a meal so I can buy less. So, yeah.
Well, and I'm going down the same. I'm doing that as Darren's been doing for years, as the meal prepping and getting ahead of myself. Like, I made myself soup the other day. Like, nice. So I got a whole chicken, cooked it down, threw all in a mirror pot. It cost me $30 for all the ingredients to make this big batch of soup there, and I had that for 2 weeks. Like, I froze half of it off, and then I'll cook off some rice, or I'll do up a little pasta or whatever, just to bulk it up a little bit. And there's a meal for me, you know. And I made amazing grits.
Nice.
It's sausage with grits, and I used the chicken soup as the base for the grits, and I was like, this was like so good. And that meal cost me first of all, the bag of grits was given to me, so that's a bonus there.
There you go.
And
grits wasn't going to be expensive anyway. Your cornmeal.
When was the last time you were at the grocery store? Come on. Changed since you were there this morning, right?
And I've planted a little more, or planting a little more. That's my my goal.
That's great.
A couple of things going in the garden, more than I would have done in the past.
I think one of the other bonuses, sorry to cut you off.
No,
I
not
didn't
at
mean
all.
to do that at all. But I was thinking that this is actually a good time to start looking locally too,
Yeah.
as Darren said, because, here's the deal is that we've always had, it's been always more expensive for the locally grown product. But most of these, we've established a very good growing season around here and a good bunch of farms. And I think their costs are going to stay maybe a little bit more, but it's going to see it. Yeah. You're going to see it drop, or I think you're going to see it level out and everything raised to their prices. And so I think you're going to get some really good deals on local products. And you know what? That so supports food security.
Absolutely.
And puts us all in a good place. Yeah. And it's buying in bulk and processing that food and having doing up some tomato sauce or canning some pickles, having that stuff for over the winter time is just going to help you out. It costs a little bit more in the summer, but it's going to be great in the winter, right? So
absolutely. We got home delivery, just to put a lighter edge on this.
Yeah,
we got home delivery food the other day from a grocery store.
Oh, okay.
And first time we done it, and we asked for 2 potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to match the potato. They were jacket potatoes or roast potato, baked potatoes.
Baker.
Yeah. And
russets.
Yeah, we are russets. It's always different. It's not like another language.
We have a whole bunch of words for it. So yeah.
Anyway, so we got they didn't interpret or write to us. All right. So the potatoes are the biggest potatoes I've ever seen. 2 potatoes took up a whole supermarket bag.
What?
That's
not possible.
I'm holding up and just showing you now how big each one.
Footballs.
Yeah, I'm talking like a small football.
Wow.
Twice.
Yeah, that's an American football, not a Canadian football.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. It was very, very funny. We were like, oh my gosh, is that 2 potatoes? Bless them. They got a 5-star review because legends.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. And as we're talking about, I think the last point that I'd make there too is that to bring this back to the food chain, if you're shopping local, you're making that chain so much smaller. You're eliminating so many of those parts that where food costs get added. So by supporting local, you're not just helping your own economy. You're avoiding all those different places where a little extra cost gets added on.
I just love you brought that because I looked down at this list, and so labor shortage. I mean, yes, there is labor shortage in the community, but there's a labor shortage getting the food to us, delivering it to us. Problems in the supply chain, right? Like things getting lost and stuff like that. It's going from that farm to your plate. So there's a bonus right there.
Yeah.
Climate change. Well, you know what? It's getting warmer here. So we might get some avocados growing outside soon. Yeah. Who knows?
Maybe I can finally grow that lemon tree that I've always wanted. Yeah.
We do get local lemons, the Meyer lemons from Industry Farms.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which are amazing. But it is in a greenhouse, but I'm amazed how many lemons we get from them. Oh, I mean, not from Industry Farms. Please don't buy their.
Don't buy theirs.
Sorry, guys. And then it's and that just adds to our food security, and the fuel price gets driven down because you're not bringing it halfway. You're not bringing it up from Mexico. You're not bringing it from halfway around the world. So.
Yeah.
So we weren't sure about this episode. We knew we had to do an episode on food
we had
prices.
to comment on it. It was just crazy.
Yeah, we have to be where you are, and you, if you're the half average person, are aware of the food prices at the moment. It's probably the closest we'll ever come to a general complaining podcast, but I do hope that we manage to shine a bit of a light on everything, and at least when we're in the grocery store and we see those ticket prices going up and up, we understand that it's a whole process, and we should be very grateful for everything that brings that to our shelves. But we should be happy to go back to what our grandparents would have been doing, a little while ago, and making things go a little bit further. Yeah, that was Jerry's final thoughts.
There we go. Well, I would like to put a little challenge out to our listeners out there, everyone, and be like, what are some ways that you can save money on your food bills?
Sure.
Yeah, we'd love to know that.
Yeah, something that we haven't covered, or maybe we didn't go into.
We'd love to hear from you how you are cutting back on your food bill or maintaining your food bill and being able to feed your family or feed yourself on a much tighter budget.
Food hacks.
food hacks.
Yeah.
We would love to hear from you. So
Great. Well, thank you very much. This has been Edible Valley episode 207. We're right up there now, heading fast towards episode 300. My name is William. I'm the producer.
I'm chef and host Jonathan Fraser.
And I'm DJ Murphy, signing off.
A great one. And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
It's like a shootout.
Okay, yeah.
No, you
Are we
go.
Spider-Manning it?
This is the Edible Valley podcast
It's
episode.
the Spider-Man meme.
We're just like doing like...
Episode 207. No. I would like, should we call it signature?
And this has been an Edible Valley production.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, ready again?